In 2016, the world's leading AI expert warned students to stop training as radiologists, and he said that within 5 years, their jobs would disappear. By 2013, a viral study claimed nearly half of American jobs would vanish to automation. While headlines screamed that self-driving trucks would wipe out millions of drivers, today those jobs are not just surviving. They are booming. So why did the most famous predictions get it so wrong? The answer is not just about bad forecasts. It is about the hidden forces actually reshaping the future of work in ways no one warned you about. In late 2016, Geoffrey Hinton, the scientist known as the Godfather of artificial intelligence, stood before a packed conference in Toronto and delivered a warning that sent shockwaves through medical schools everywhere. He warned that within 5 years, deep learning was going to do better than radiologists. He compared the profession to Wile E. Coyote, legs spinning in midair, already over the cliff. The reaction was swift. Medical students who once dreamed of careers in radiology started scrambling for alternatives. Residency applications to top programs dropped by as much as 40% in places like UCLA. On forums and in classrooms, students swapped stories of switching to dermatology or primary care, spooked by the idea that their chosen specialty might not even exist by the time they graduated. But the future played out very differently. By 2023, the number of practicing radiologists in the US hit a 20-year high. The Mayo Clinic, one of the world's most advanced hospitals, expanded its radiology staff by 55%, growing to over 400 physicians. Instead of a surplus, the country now faces the largest shortage of radiologists in its history. Hospitals are scrambling to hire, and imaging backlogs stretch for weeks. The very field that was supposed to be swept away by algorithms is now desperate for more human experts. AI did arrive, but not in the way Hinton predicted. There are over 80 FDA-cleared AI tools for medical imaging, yet only 1 in 3 radiologists uses any of them regularly. Among those who do, only 5.7% say the software always works. The promise of flawless automation never materialized. In 2024, Hinton himself admitted that he had spoken too broadly and that AI aids but does not replace radiologists. The panic, it turns out, was the real disruption. The profession survived and then it exploded, precisely because machines could not do the job alone. In 2013, 2 Oxford researchers, Carl Benedict Frey and Michael Osborne, published a paper that would ripple through governments, boardrooms, and newsrooms around the world. Their conclusion was blunt. Nearly half of all American jobs, 47%, were at high risk of being automated away within a generation. The study's charts and rankings landed in policy briefings for the Obama administration, echoed by the Bank of England, and were cited in speeches at the World Bank and in headlines across the BBC. Suddenly, the idea that robots and algorithms would sweep through the workforce felt less like science fiction and more like an urgent warning. The numbers were everywhere. Insurance underwriters, for example, were flagged as the single most vulnerable profession. Recreational therapists, by contrast, were labeled the safest. News outlets ran lists of the doomed and the blessed, and companies began hiring consultants to assess their own risk of replacement. The 47% figure took on a life of its own, fueling a decade of anxiety and reshaping conversations about education, training, and the future of work. But reality had other plans. Since 2013, the United States economy has added more than 16 million jobs. Insurance underwriters, once thought to be the canaries in the coal mine, actually grew by 16.4%. Recreational therapists, once thought untouchable, declined by nearly 9%. The mismatch between prediction and outcome was so stark that by 2025, the San Francisco Federal Reserve and major investment firms were openly questioning the entire premise. The occupations most at risk in 2013 are not the ones facing the greatest pressure today. As the data kept coming, the original forecast looked less like prophecy and more like a snapshot of misplaced panic. Elon Musk stood on stage in 2016 and declared that 90% of trucks would drive themselves by the end of that year. Coast-to-coast autonomous hauls, he promised, were just around the corner. By 2020, he said, there would be 1 million robotaxis on the road. Investors poured billions into the dream. Two simple, once valued at $40 billion, promised driverless convoys. Waymo launched its own trucking division. Embark Robotics hired hundreds, built test fleets, and boasted about a driverless future. Lawsuits later called these claims corporate puffery, but the headlines had already done their work. The reality is far less glamorous. Too Simple shut down all U.S. trucking operations and pivoted to gaming software. Waymo suspended its entire trucking project. Embark laid off 70% of its staff before liquidating the company. Volvo abandoned its own autonomous truck prototypes, calling the technology a dead end for now. The much-hyped revolution stalled out in the prototype lab. Meanwhile, the American trucking industry faces a crisis of its own, but not the one automation prophets warned about. There are 3.05 million truck drivers still working today, and it is not enough. The American Trucking Associations estimate a shortage of 82,000 drivers, with forecasts calling for 1.1 million new hires over the next decade just to keep up with demand. Freight companies are losing $95.5 million every week because they simply cannot find enough people willing to do the job. Veteran truckers report turning down offers topping $90,000 a year. The so-called robot trucks have not replaced anyone. Instead, the industry is desperate for new recruits, not fewer. The gap between the hype and the highway has never been wider. In 2016, the financial world braced for a digital takeover. Consulting firms and tech evangelists predicted that algorithms would soon make human financial advisors obsolete, cutting their numbers in half within a decade. The logic was simple. Why pay hefty fees for advice when robo-advisors could manage portfolios for a fraction of the cost? Venture capital poured into slick apps promising to democratize wealth management, and headlines warned of a looming extinction event for anyone still picking stocks by hand. But the numbers tell a different story. The Bureau of Labor Statistics now projects a 17% increase in financial advisor jobs by 2033. Far from shrinking, the industry faces a looming shortage. 100,000 new advisors will be needed by 2034, and despite the hype, more than half of Americans still prefer to trust a human with their retirement plans. Robo-advisors have found a niche, but it is not the one futurists imagined. 70% of their users make less than $100,000 a year, and most rely on these platforms for basic portfolio management, not complex planning. The real surprise is how the profession adapted. Advisors like Rick Edelman doubled their client lists over the past decade by using robo-tools to automate routine tasks, leaving more time for building relationships and navigating the emotional side of investing. According to Morgan Stanley, humans still close 70% of deals, a testament to the enduring value of trust. Even as algorithms crunch market data at lightning speed, clients keep coming back for the reassurance that only a person can provide. The great Robo-Advisor revolution did not wipe out financial advisors. It quietly turned them into something more valuable than ever. The story is not just about a handful of professions dodging extinction. Across the economy, roles that were supposedly on the chopping block are growing at rates few predicted. Software developers, for example, are in higher demand than ever. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 15% growth in developer jobs through 2033, triple the national average. That translates to 1.7 million people building apps, maintaining networks, and integrating the very AI that was supposed to replace them. Healthcare tells a similar story. Nurse practitioners are projected to grow by a staggering 46% over the next decade, making it the third fastest growing occupation in the country. Registered nurses are not far behind, with 189,100 job openings expected every year. In hospital pharmacies, employment jumped 7.3% in 2024 alone, as new treatments and aging populations drive up demand for skilled workers. Legal careers are thriving too. In 2024, 93.4% of law school graduates found employment, the highest rate ever recorded. Even in real estate, where online platforms were supposed to make agents obsolete, the field is still growing by 3%. And then there is education. Despite years of warnings about automated classrooms, 1 in 8 teaching positions remains unfilled. School districts across the country are scrambling to recruit and keep qualified teachers, offering bonuses and flexible schedules just to compete. Brief snapshots from the front lines bring these numbers to life. A software developer in Austin describes turning down 3 job offers in a single month. A nurse practitioner in Ohio juggles a waiting list of patients, with local clinics offering signing bonuses and tuition reimbursement. These are not isolated blips, they are part of a broad, data-backed surge across sectors. The doom narratives promised a shrinking job market. The numbers say otherwise. The story behind AI's missed predictions runs deeper than overhyped headlines or failed timelines. At the heart of the disconnect is what researchers call the last mile problem. MIT and Brookings teams found that while 80% of computer vision tasks could, in theory, be automated, only 23% are actually both technically feasible and economically worthwhile to deploy. The challenge is not building a clever algorithm, it is getting it to work reliably, safely, and affordably in the real world. In healthcare, for example, less than 10% of hospitals report formal adoption of AI, despite hundreds of FDA-cleared tools. Integration hurdles, regulatory headaches, and the need for near-perfect reliability stall progress. Every extra decimal point of safety, going from 99 to 99.9% accuracy, can add years to deployment. The gap between a promising demo and a functioning, trusted system is wide and expensive. But even when automation lands, the outcome often flips expectations. The Jevons paradox, first noticed in the age of steam engines, explains why. When technology makes a task cheaper or faster, demand for that task often explodes. Take the ATM. When banks rolled out automated tellers, the number of human tellers did not collapse. It grew. Lower costs meant banks could open more branches, and more branches meant more jobs. The same pattern is playing out today. AI speeds up radiology scans, so doctors order more of them. Robo-advisors handle the grunt work, freeing human advisors to take on more clients and offer more complex services. Stanford economist Eric Brynjolfsson sums it up. AI could lead to increased demand for human labor, not mass layoffs. The real story is not that the robots are coming for everyone's job, it is that, in many fields, they are making the work more valuable than ever. A software engineer sits at his kitchen table scrolling through a layoff notice for the 3rd time in a year. His team was dissolved overnight. One line in an email blamed AI-driven restructuring. He is not alone. In 2023, nearly 429,000 tech workers lost their jobs, the worst year on record for the industry. Amazon cut 16,000 roles. Google cut 12,000. Microsoft cut 10,000. Meta slashed more than 10,000 positions, then trimmed hundreds more from its AI division in late 2024. Intel's single round in 2024 wiped out 15,000 jobs. An entire city's worth of programmers, designers, and analysts gone in a quarter. Freelancers, once insulated by gig platforms, watched their work evaporate even faster. After ChatGPT's release, freelance writing and coding jobs on major sites dropped sharply. A Stanford study found that early career workers in AI-exposed roles saw employment drop 13% in just 2 years. Upwork and Fiverr, once bustling with creative gigs, shifted overnight as buyers flocked to automated content. Top freelancers reported double-digit drops in income, with many forced to pivot or abandon their fields entirely. The pain was not limited to coders and writers. Data entry clerks, once a reliable entry point for office work, faced a 28.7% decline, the steepest drop of any occupation tracked by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Programmers saw employment shrink by more than a quarter between 2023 and 2025. For many, the promise of AI was not a job upgrade, it was a pink slip. The headlines about thriving professions missed the reality for hundreds of thousands suddenly left searching for answers. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, has warned that artificial intelligence could erase half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years. That is not a distant threat. It is a present reality, reshaping the way new graduates and young professionals find their footing. LinkedIn has called it a breaking of the career ladder. The rungs that once let people climb from internships to stable careers are disappearing. The numbers are stark. Fortune 500 companies have slashed internship offers by 22% since 2022. In the tech sector, internships are down 34%. For those who do land a first job, the path forward is uncertain. Over 41% of recent college graduates are now working in positions that do not require a degree. Entry-level hiring at the biggest tech firms fell by a quarter from 2023 to 2024. The traditional launchpad for professional advancement is vanishing, replaced by gigs, contract work, or jobs outside of a chosen field. It is not just about fewer openings. The skills themselves are changing underfoot. The World Economic Forum projects that by 2030, 39% of all workplace skills will be obsolete. Those who manage to adapt, who can work with AI instead of being replaced by it, are reaping the rewards. Workers with strong AI skills now command a 56% wage premium over their peers. The global tally tells a complicated story. While 92 million jobs are expected to be displaced by automation, 170 million new ones are forecast to appear for a net gain of 78 million. But for those at the bottom of the ladder, the risk is not just losing a job, it is losing the very first step. Today, millions work in roles I was meant to erase, yet the greatest risk now is for those shut out before they even begin. As automation reshapes the entry level, the real divide is not between humans and machines, but between those with a foothold and those left behind. The future of work is still being written. Whose story gets told next depends on the choices we make now.